The
entry.
Could you say something about this collapse of the me from an evolutionary point of view?
well, yes, very clearly, there is no such thing as evolution. Evolution is another appearance, like progress, or things evolving or changing, is simply no thing appearing to be something that changes or evolves. It's not real, and it's not unreal, it's just another appearance. And evolution has absolutely no significance of any kind.
As what?
Can the appearance change?
Only apparently. Things appear to change, they're just wholeness playing the game of appearing to change and appearing to evolve. It's a game. It's a game of life which has no meaning of any kind. So,
So this question goes a bit in the same sense, because often you say in your introductory speech that at an early age the child is open and there's only being, and then the energy kind of like
that's a story.
contracts.
It's a story.
So, but then the question is then, what is the relation between this apparent person at baby age and at the adult age, and then in the end?
None.
Is it the same person, baby and the adult?
There isn't a person. There is only wholeness, and within wholeness, wholeness appears as a baby and then as an adult. So the whole thing is just an appearance.
But then, you say, and then means...
That's a story, yeah. And then, the prince met the princess, or the princess kissed the frog. That's a story. It has no meaning. What we're doing here is talking from a natural reality to a separate reality, or an artificial reality, which only understands stories, because it is a story. So the isness is talking to something that lives in a story about something that's beyond the story. Within the story, there's something that's being suggested that's beyond the story, another possibility, that there's no story, no individual, all there is this, and this is the infinite, timeless beingness. And that's what that thing in the story that thinks it's a real person going around in a train thinks it is looking for or trying to find. What's being suggested here is that energy going around in a train looking for that which is timeless is completely and utterly futile. But what the story illuminates, what the story of the baby becoming separate and contracted energy illuminates, is the way in which that artificial energy or construct seems to be real. And for the individual, their lives and the idea of free will and going around in a train looking for something seems to them to be real. All that's doing is illuminating something.
So the story of the energy contracting into something that's
the
story means it's just for comparison.
Yeah, it's just a powerful, it's meaningless. It's pointing to something beyond itself.
It's not how it really is.
There isn't anything that's really how it really is. There is nothing that is real. That's amazing. And that's the difference between that which lives in its own real, separate reality. The individual lives in an artificially real, but it feels that it's real. So it lives in something that seems to it to be absolutely real. And that's why it can't comprehend what we're talking about here, because this is unreal. It just can't comprehend anything unreal. It'll talk about it, it'll give the unreal lip service. It'll say, oh yes, there is a God, or there is being, or there is wholeness, or there is that which is unreal. But it can't possibly know the unreal, because it only exists in the wheel. It can only have life, or it can only have an apparent life or function in the wheel only. When the wheel falls apart, there's nothing left. It dies. It only exists in a real story. The story is the me is the story, and it seems real. And what we're talking about here is the possibility of that collapsing. But in describing it, like in a story, it's a way of explaining or trying to illuminate how that reality forms, that artificial reality takes form.
Tony, if we say Tony books a flight or Claire books a flight?
No, there isn't anybody that
you would have to say
there is no Claire and no
yes,
Tony. There's just a flight that apparently seems to be.
You would have to say there's nobody to book a flight. And
It's what happens.
Booking a flight happens,
Yeah.
but in a deeper sense we have to say also booking a flight does not really happen.
Well, it's like everything else. Everything is only real and unreal.
So if we talk about, if we use words, actually you maintain the illusion, is that right?
Yeah. All words are dualistic.
So that if you also talk, so...
I don't, but talking happens, I've noticed.
Also talking doesn't happen.
Yes. Well, I did explain at the beginning that what we can do is talk about this together, but what it points to is beyond words.
It's the silence. And can I
No, it's not the
Not the
silence.
silence.
Sorry. It's not silence.
Absolutely nothing.
We're not pointing to silence. Silence is a state that comes and goes. Stillness is a state that comes and goes within the whole. What we're pointing to is beyond knowing. Silence can be known.
Eternal silence.
Well, if you... Well, the eternal silence. It doesn't matter, it's unknown. It's at the unknown.
Beloved one.
You like a word, isn't it?
If you had to grow up a child now,
Sorry?
if you had to grow up a child, a baby,
Oh, too.
how would you grow it up?
No way.
You have to give it a name.
But that wouldn't be any different. A child in the story grows up and becomes a person. That is the apparent story. There's nothing anybody can do about it. There's nothing that needs to be done. Let's be clear about this. Separation and the individual is the absolute expression of wholeness. There's nothing wrong with it.
So you just get it to live it again.
Sorry?
You get the feeling of separation just to get rid of it.
Well, that's a story, yes.
So you couldn't grow up a child without giving a name or...
Well, no, there isn't anybody that can do anything. There
also,
isn't
you couldn't
anybody.
do it.
Sorry?
You too couldn't
Nobody
do
has
it.
a choice. There is no choice at any level. All there is this. This is the infinite and doesn't need to choose it. If it needed to choose something, then it would be in time choosing something. There is no choice.
Can you also say something about thinking and thoughts?
Well, they're just things that seem to happen.
Conceptual.
Well, they are real and unreal, like
Everything
the
else.
floor and the walls and the sky. Thoughts and emotions are things that seem to happen.
So we run through the process of separation.
Only apparently.
Apparently get rid of it again.
Only apparently, yes. But you're telling me a story, there isn't one. And getting rid of separation doesn't happen because this is not happening. This is no thing apparently happening. And it's not funny.
If I understood you properly, and what keeps you, you state that fear keeps us separated.
Well, out of separation arises fear.
Out of separation
there is nothing left, there is only everything. And when there's only everything, or in everything, sorry, there is fear. It's not real, it's real and only.
No, because like I feel like fear is like the last barrier.
Oh, really? No, the last barrier is you. You know, if you want to say that there's a barrier, the barrier is the separate me. When that collapses, everything collapses with it. All that's left, when I say all that's left, all that's left is everything, and that's a lot. And in everything, anything arises, fear.
Yeah, but this fear of this online state is what keeps you separated.
Well, out of no thing arises the apparent energy of separation, which seems to the individual to be a continuous happening, but there is no continuous happening because there is nothing happening. The individual lives on a train in time and feels fear and pleasure and all those different things, and just a set of a run of experiences, and that comes out of no thing, that comes out of the infinite. That is the timeless pretending to be in time and pretending to be a series of experiences.
I would like to go back again to somewhere we were speaking about. My question was about the concept of this word soul, or even individual soul. I suppose you would say it's a concept and the soul.
Oh yes, it's Christian teaching.
Christian teaching again.
Oh, it's just pure dualism.
Oh, dualism.
Oh, of course, yes. It implies that there is somebody with a soul. Or there is a soul in the body or whatever. When I was a Christian, I was told that I had a soul, somewhere in here. It was a sort of big round red thing. And that if I behaved myself, my soul would become purified. I did try that for quite a few hours, It was in early November in 1957. That whole basis is the idea that there is something called a soul, which is somehow related to something else called God, who sits on a big throne with a beard, and he has an account, Tony Parsons, -16. It's dualism, it's pure dualism.
And so there is no one there. There is
no one. There's no one, not here, there's no one.
As apparently this has died, there is nothing.
Well, the illusion of there being someone collapsed.
It has collapsed. And if that didn't collapse, but it dies physical death, again I ask again, after physical death, the so-called apparent person who didn't collapse in the so-called dream world, but now physical body disintegrates. Nothing is being watched, witnessed, no consciousness, no nothing, blackout. But now there is not a blackout. There is seeing.
This is blackout.
This is blackout. How?
No, there's just this. This is all there is. There's just this.
But there is this talking out of nothingness.
Of course, yeah. There's what's happening, which is also this. It's timeless. It's the infinite. All there is the infinite, appearing to be something happening And for the individual, it seems to be happening in time and it's real. I mean, that just, it's impossible. It's not difficult, it's just impossible.
It's impossible to understand or to explain, or you mean?
And to explain as well.
But is there a knowing there?
No.
No,
There is no knowing. That's the whole thing that's impossible to. If there was a knowing, I could write it out for you and give it to you. It could be in the newspapers next week. There is no one. But it's impossible. It's utterly impossible. I can't give it to you. It isn't mine to give to you. There isn't anyone that can give it to you because it isn't a thing that can be given or understood.
So all the mediums, even if they're very good seemingly, who are giving from the beyond messages from the so-called dead, it's all fairy tales.
It's all very bullshit. It's just...
But for many people it's consoling.
Yes, that's true. There are lots of things that are consoling.
Yes.
I've noticed.
Okay. Yes.
Hot
But
chocolate
this
at night. Having a soul.
From the Christian point of view, it would be actually cheating people or misleading people or being a fraud to them in a sense.
Being
fraud.
What is? I'm sorry, I'm not with you.
How to say?
What is being
fraud?
What's being?
Karma or something like when you tell the people something
That's
which
not
is
true.
not existing or something. Fine, just let it go. Thank you.
I just want to go back to that thing about fear, because I feel there's a sort of hook there. Really, basically, when there's an individual, the fear feels real. Just, it is real. When that individual illusion collapses, everything is seen for what it really is. So fear is obviously an appearance of wholeness. There is fear, but it's not real anymore. It's real and unreal.
Because
Everything is seen through.
the first time I was here with you, like 3 or 4 days afterwards, I had this experience of, how to say, of wholeness, but I was so afraid that I was even shaking. So
It's fine.
therefore,
You rushed back in and re-established your seat on the throne. No, really, that's what happened. It's absolutely appropriate that happens.
But therefore the question of the fear, how to overcome this fear.
Oh no, you can't overcome it. Even the fear in the normal, story of life, there isn't anything that can overcome it. It's what's happening. But certainly when there's an opening to this, there can be a great fear that arises in me, because me recognises that it might be the end of me. That's fine. For some people, not for others. It varies tremendously how this has a reaction in people. For some people it's really frightening and there's a lot of emotions that go on. For other people it's absolutely cool.